Good. You're on your channel too. Do, do, do. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hello, and we're live. Hi, Brian. Thank you for joining my little channel. I really appreciate it. We're a couple minutes early. I think as people get notifications, they'll come on. They don't need to work. They need to cut out of work and come watch you live. I'm a big fan. I often work a second job at night. So tell us and put in the chat if you like, what channel are you on? What's your YouTube channel? Where could everyone find you? I know, but I'm not telling.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for having me on. And so you want me to just type in the comments my channel name?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
In the meantime, I'll say hi to Michael. Hi, Michael. Early is always better than 1 second late. Let's see if I could put the comments up without blocking you. I think we're okay without blocking you.
Yep, that's
Let's
good.
see. They blocked a guest yesterday, and I was like, didn't work. And let me just say hi to Sandy, saying hi, Brian and Juliet. Uh, who's who's Wickavore?
That is me. So that is me.
Hi, Wickavore. I didn't know. I love that name. That's so good. Hi, Lynn. Everyone's saying hi to you as well. They're probably from your channel. Um, everyone's saying hi, Brian. Bacon Runner is Donna Ray. She has a great channel just starting out, and Running Tap is probably from your channel, I think, as well. And that's Jeannie or Janine, Jeannie, I think I call her. And Paul's on. Hi, Paul. Thanks, guys, for coming. Really appreciate it. We start, and Mason, the bars are mailed. Thank you. And I'm sorry for the delay. So before we went live, I said, I'd love to hear, I've heard your carnivore story, but if anyone hasn't, I was, when I listened to you on another channel, I was absolutely impressed with your journey. And also, talking about, I'd like you to talk about, if you said you wouldn't mind, like your heart condition, how you're handling that, what's going on with that. And we're not doctors. I mean, we play coaches on TV, but that's, I just want from your perspective what you've gone through, not giving advice.
Sure. So first of all, yes, that the at Wickavore was me, by the way. So if you go to YouTube, that's how you get to the page, but I'm actually known as Wick Goes Carnivore. So that's kind of confusing sometimes for people. So I'll just put that out there. Okay, so I'll give you a quick background, I guess, about going to the carnivore diet. And essentially, most of my adult life from like my 20s, I was overweight. And over time, with aging and being overweight, I started to have different issues with like joint pain, stuff like that. So I had a lot of joint pain. I had some arthritis in my big toes. I had back pain, like hip pain that was really bad, like lower back and then to the hips. So basically at night, but by the time before I found carnivore, like in my later 40s, basically at night, I could sleep for a couple hours in bed. And that was as far as I could make it. And I would go then downstairs. We had a recliner downstairs, and I would sit on the recliner the rest of the night. And I did that pretty much every night because I was in so much pain. So pretty overweight, had the different issues there, had like mild depression, didn't really feel like doing things. Just wanted to sit around, that kind of stuff. Wasn't active or any of that kind of stuff. So I was just making myself miserable and making it worse all the time, right? And I kind of hit like what I like to call, like, everybody has a breaking point. And it was like my breaking point where I decided that I needed to do something for myself. So the first thing I did was I had heard from other people that were losing weight with keto and that they were, feeling really good with doing it and so forth. So I started looking into that, and I found Dr. Ken Berry's channel and I started doing keto. This would be in the spring of 2022. And I was 48 years old at the time. And I did that for a couple months. I did lose a few pounds, but I didn't really notice any difference with like back pain or any of that stuff. And I should back up a little bit because we did say we're going to talk about my heart stuff.
Oh, sure.
So let me bring that up real quick. In 2018, I was diagnosed with A-Fib. That's atrial fibrillation. And I always have a hard time saying this. I think it's paroxysmal A-Fib it's called. So there's that type of A-Fib, which basically your body, you go into episodes of A-Fib where your heart starts beating inconsistently. It'll start beating really fast and then it'll kind of slow down some and then it goes really fast and so forth. And then eventually you go out of it on your own. And that's the type I had. There's also persistent A-Fib.
Okay. I was going to say, and
Sorry.
we're going to go to persistent in a second.
Yeah.
I have to, okay, again, I am, this is not my area even of study, but usually I hear older people get A-Fib, like, you know, the grandmas in my life. Any reason why like a younger person would get it, or am I missing the boat? And any age it happens and I just don't know.
It's definitely more common in older people. However, probably in the last 10 years or so, it's becoming more common with younger people. And I think some of that just has to do with our metabolic health that we have, right? Most people aren't as healthy as they used to be and so forth.
But get back
what
to
I
persistent.
will
I was
say,
curious.
okay, what I will say is that when I first was diagnosed with it in 2018, let's see, I guess I was 40, I think I was 44 at the time. My cardiologist told me that I was pretty young for A-Fib, but he also told me it would just get worse as I went on. He told me that it was hereditary. My dad did have A-Fib. I think he was like in his 50s or 60s when he first got it, but he did have A-Fib. And he told me basically it was hereditary and there wasn't a whole lot you could do other than certain types of procedures that they could do. It's like one thing is they can, if you can't get out of it on your own, they can do something where they shock your heart back into rhythm. And then another thing, if you keep having issues with going into A-Fib, they do what's called an ablation, where they can burn parts of your heart that are causing the signals to get mixed up. And then the idea is that you don't have A-Fib anymore, although they say that most people that have that done eventually will end up having episodes again.
Dumb question. Can they just put a pacemaker in? Isn't that what a pacemaker's for? Or again, I don't know this topic.
So I guess they probably could, but I'm not really familiar about that. But what I do know is one of the things they said, one of the risks with having the ablation done is if the part that they need to burn off in your heart has to do with that, you have to have a pacemaker put in. So that's one risk that could happen. I'm not very familiar with all of that with the pacemaker. I don't, because like what A-Fib is that the signals going to your heart get mixed up, and that's what causes the heart to stop beating correctly. So I don't know enough about that. I'm not a doctor, so I don't know if having the pacemaker would just take care of that or not. I'm not very familiar. Yeah. So anyway, that started in 2018. And in 2022, when I started the keto diet in the spring of 2022, I was having several episodes a week, at least 2 to 3 episodes a week, where I would go in and then go back out of it on my own. Now, I was going to say that there's another type of A-Fib, and that's called persistent A-Fib. And that's when you are in it for at least 7 days without going out of it on your own. And most people that are in it like that the only way that they can get out of it is typically with either doing the where they shock the heart back into rhythm. I forget exactly what that term is called that is called, but it's either that or maybe an ablation or that type of thing, right? So if you are familiar with Johnny, the carnivore champion, he has persistent A-Fib. So he has been constantly in it now for a little over a year. And I have paroxysmal, if I said that correctly, that I just go in and out of it on my own. So in the spring of 2022, when I started doing keto, I did it for about 2 to 3 months. And I didn't notice any difference for my AFib. I didn't notice any difference with like the pain I was having in my joints. I still was having trouble sleeping at night where I would get up after a couple hours because it was too sore, all that kind of stuff. But I did see a few pounds of weight loss. At the same time that I was trying to do keto, I started looking more into the carnivore diet, kind of from Dr. Berry, but then other people that I was finding. And I said, maybe that's just what I need to do. It seemed to make a lot of sense to me to just completely get all the plant material, the carbohydrates out of my diet and so forth. So I did that. And I would say really quickly within the first couple of weeks, I was sleeping in bed all night with no back pain, no hip pain, no issues at all there. My wife noticed fairly quickly that I wasn't snoring anymore. And fairly quickly, I noticed I wasn't having any A-Fib episodes anymore. And so this was July of 2022 is when I started. So at least by August of 2022, that I could confidently say that I was not having any A-Fib episodes anymore. And I was taking medication. I was on a blood thinner and so forth that my cardiologist had me on. And about a year and a half in, after doing different tests, one test was having a heart monitor for 30 days, and there were no signs of AFib or anything. He actually took me off of that medication, off the blood thinner, and that has now been 2 years since then. So I'm now over 3.5 years on the carnivore diet and 3.5 years without having any AFib episodes. Now, mind you, their cardiologist told me that there was nothing I could do about it. It was just going to get worse. I could lose a few pounds, and that might help a little bit, but I couldn't get rid of it. Right? That was the thing. And he's pretty shocked but happy with what's been happening with me. He's done a lot of different tests. The last thing that he did was have a CAC scan done. And I had a 0 score. So that was good.
Awesome.
And he doesn't really have a great answer for why I haven't had one. He still says, you got to be prepared that it could happen again. And I get it. It could. I'm personally thinking, yeah, it probably would if I went back to eating carbohydrates, right? But
yes.
That's where I've been. So and here's the thing, like I've heard from a lot of different people that have seen improvements. Some people even said the same as me, like the AFib has gone away. And I think it really depends on how bad it is for a person and what type of AFib they have. Mm-hmm. Because most people that I hear from that see a lot of improvements, it is the same as me. It's the paroxysmal AFib where it goes away on its own and comes back and so forth. Most people that have persistent AFib, I think that typically they end up having to have an ablation. Now, if they're eating this way, they might be good where they don't go back into it again. But typically from people that have persistent AFib, they have trouble getting rid of it on their own with just the diet. So.
Okay. Well, you're young enough to be my son, just about. So I was going to say, I want to talk to you like a wife, but I guess it's more like a mom. So you do you exercise, your job is rather strenuous, correct? With what you do, don't you transport and move patients or
No, so that's Johnny. That's Johnny that does that.
People
So
confuse me and Amy all the time. I'm sorry.
that's okay. I actually have a very lazy job. I sit at a computer all day.
Me too.
So I'm just the opposite. But what I like to do to try and break that up is I get some kind of activity or something. And what I've been doing for a few months now is push ups. So, like, I'll do some push ups in the morning when I wake up, and then I'll be working. And after a few hours or something, I'll go do some more push ups. And then maybe I'll work again for another hour or two, and then I'll go do some more push ups. So I might do, depending on the day, 50 or 60 or 100 or more push ups in a day,
Okay.
just from different times I do it. And that's kind of where I'm getting most of my activity when I'm working. And then, at least when it's warmer, right now it's really cold, but when it's warmer, I try and get outside and do things as well. So,
Okay, so I'm being the mom wife, and I'm just picturing my husband and me going, maybe you shouldn't do that. Maybe you shouldn't do push-ups. Like, so that's the mom in me. But
mm,
does that concern you at all? Like strenuous activities? I mean, is that cool with you and your doctor?
yeah. Th- so this is what I'll say. Before Carnivore, I could make myself go into an episode of A-Fib by exercising too strenuously. And the best example would be like lifting heavy weights. Let's say I was going to do some bench pressing or something. And if I'd push myself too hard, I would notice I'd do the bench press and I'd be like, okay, I'm pretty sure I'm in A-Fib. And I'd check it. And sure enough, my heart's racing like crazy. So I could do that. When I first noticed that the A-Fib episodes were going away on Carnivore, I was very afraid to do any strenuous activity. And for the longest time, I didn't. And then
Right,
I
yeah.
started doing some weightlifting and noticed I wasn't going in. So then I did some other things to push myself. So for me, since I've been free basically of carbs, I don't have that problem. Before I noticed it. Now, my cardiologist did always say that exercise is actually better for you. There are some cases of people that can go into A-Fib from exercise, but in other cases, there are people that exercise to get out of A-Fib, which is very interesting. So
Oh, wow.
there are people that will, like, for instance, go on an exercise bike and ride a bike for a while when they're in A-Fib, and it seems to get their heart back into rhythm. I don't know exactly why that is. I just know that there have been people that have said that, and that's what my cardiologist told me as well. So he has really encouraged doing the exercise, and luckily, it does not seem to cause me any issues like it did before Carnivore.
That's good to know. I'd be a little nervous. And then
Mm.
Tanya has a question, so you could see it there. Brian, did you see any correlation with AFib and caffeine? And everyone's loving this question. We want to know.
So I believe I did.
Mhm.
And the best thing I can point to is with my job, I was out of town one time and we were working on some server updates that we had to do to some equipment. And we had to work overnight. And so we had people that were working overnight, and I was a leader. So I was there observing overnight stuff. And then I was there during the day as well while we were planning other stuff. And so I had worked quite a bit, and I knew some of the people had worked overnight and they were working that morning as well. So I went home, I went back to the hotel, got like an hour or two of sleep, and then I went and I got some coffee that I brought to the office for people to drink. And I am not a coffee drinker at all, but I had 2 cups of coffee, and within an hour, I noticed I was an AFib.
Mm.
That's my best example for it. Now, my doctor always said that caffeine can cause you to go into AFib, alcohol can, anything that increases your heart rate has the tendency to put somebody that has AFib into an episode because faster your heart rate is going, the more likely that the signals start getting messed up and it goes into AFib. So that was the last time I drank coffee. That was really the last time I had any type of caffeine. I didn't drink
Was it?
soda anymore at that point or anything. So I was pretty much just drinking water from that point on, even though I wasn't carnivore yet. Um, so that's my best example. But yes, I do fully believe that caffeine does make a difference for people, and I think it did for me as well.
Wow, so that's amazing what you learned. So, if you can remember any of the details, did you go to your doctor and say, I eat meat, I don't eat any carbs? And how did he or she, and you said he, I believe, react? I mean, did they say you've lost your mind? You need to get back on. You need to eat better, for instance.
Uh, so I didn't tell him that I was full carnivore.
Yeah.
What I told him, and I didn't tell him until after I had lost weight. So what I didn't mention was the first 3 months on the carnivore diet, I lost 60 pounds.
Oh wow,
So
wow.
that was by far the most that I have lost. I've now lost like around 85 pounds or so altogether, but that was like in a 3 month period, I lost 60 pounds. So I was going to the cardiologist every 6 months. So when he saw me at my next 6 month checkup, I had already lost at least 60, maybe 65 pounds, somewhere in there. And he was like, wow, you've lost a lot of weight. And I explained that I haven't been having any episodes either. He said, well, it probably has something to do with losing the weight, but you're probably going to go back in A-Fib at any time type thing, And
Any moment
he
now.
asked me, yeah. And he asked me what I did to lose the weight. And I basically, so when I talked to my regular doctor, my primary care doctor, I did mention carnivore and he was all up in arms over that. So when it came to my cardiologist, I just said, I am doing more of a low carb. And then I kind of remembered him telling me like Mediterranean diet was a good idea. So I said,
Yeah, yeah.
almost kind of like the Mediterranean diet, but a little bit more low carb. And then he was like, okay. So that's what he thinks I have been doing. I've never told him that I don't eat any carbs at all.
I love that. That's so Dr. Barry. He goes, don't be telling them you don't eat carbs because they'll have a fit. You just say I'm eating a whole food diet or something. I listen. I still listen to Dr. Barry, but you know that end of year 2025, like your year in review. At that point, I think
Mhm.
it said you've watched 250 Dr. Barry's video, and I thought I hope he doesn't get like a copy. He'll be like, I have a stalker and she's crazy. Oh, yeah, George, I forgive you. George is, you know George very well, I'm sure, because we all do from the UK. He's kind of been a troublemaker. And of course, you know Thomas, who's saying hello, Juliet and Brian.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me ask you. So you've been on a good 2.5 years then, right? I'm bad at math.
3.5 years.
3.5,
Yeah.
bad at math. Have you ever like decided, and it's not a judgment, but I don't have a lot of clients, so I was gonna say I have a lot of clients, yeah, all three of them, but a lot of them, do the elimination diet of carnivore, and so far everybody's gone more to keto, or lower carb meat based for their sweet spot. Have you tried that? And if so, what were the results? Or have you just been like carnivore's it because it works from my heart?
Um, I haven't really thought of doing anything other than the carnivore diet. And so let me say this. There are times that I will eat something I shouldn't, right? There are bad
Yeah,
times that happens.
sure.
Um, Christmas time of 2024, I kind of fell off for about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And maybe it's more like 3 weeks. And I gained like 20 pounds or something like
Oh my
that.
gosh.
It was
Yes.
ridiculous, right?
Yes.
Um, so I gained weight and I didn't feel as good. Anytime I have ate something I shouldn't, I kind of get that feeling like I just don't feel as good, right? Like I don't know, like you don't have the same energy, that kind of stuff. I don't know how to explain it, but you just don't feel as good. Um, so it's interesting because when that happened, I got back on things within after about, like I said, it was about 3 weeks. I got back on track, and it took me most of the year to lose that 20 pounds.
It really,
So
yeah,
I've been pretty good about not letting that happen again because that was so much work to get back to where I was.
yeah. I hear that a
Um,
lot. I hear that an
and I
awful lot. Yeah.
and I also worried that I I just worry that going back to eating any type of carbs could trigger me to go back into A-Fib, and I don't want that to happen. So that's a good motivation type of thing for
Yeah.
me. Um, and I will say that, like, I think it's great if somebody can do keto and eat a little bit of carb and not have issues. That's great.
Okay.
Um, I personally think that there's no reason we need to eat carbs because we're not getting anything nutritionally from them that we can't get from meat, eggs, that kind of stuff, right?
Right.
But that doesn't mean that I never eat a carb every once in a while or something, right? Like I said, there have been times I have done that. And that doesn't mean that I would look down on somebody else because they do that. That's just my own personal experience that I don't think there's any reason to do it. So why should I? So those are kind of the reasons that I've pretty much stuck with carnivore. And as far as I'm concerned, I plan on sticking that way forever because
Mhm.
you can't really explain, like, unless you've been through it. But like
Yeah.
before carnivore, I just didn't feel like I was going to live that much longer. I just felt so unhealthy, and I had no motivation to do anything. um I couldn't do things like just trying to put your socks on, bending over to put your socks on was difficult to do because I was so overweight.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's like some of the things that some people just take for granted, like you can't do, and you're just constantly in pain. And like for some people, they just feel like that's part of aging, like being in pain, but that's not really how it's supposed to be. And now that I feel what I feel, and I have so much more energy. I can do so many things. Like I talked about push-ups earlier, and some days I do 100 to 120 push-ups. Before carnivore, I probably couldn't even do 5 push-ups. I was lucky if I could do 1 or 2 push-ups.
And we need
So
to
it's amazing
qualify.
what I can do.
We need to qualify. Unlike Coach Juliet Edens, you don't do them on your knees, I'm sure.
No, I don't.
I didn't think so.
Yeah.
Do you and I think one thing we all say, we go in you might be like me where I'm like, I'll try this for 30 days. It was an elimination diet for me. Like I was doing that for conditions, not really the carnivore. And I'm like 30 days and I'm done. So I don't know when I started. I know roughly the month. Um, but I did the 30 days and went, oh my gosh, I feel so much better. It's crazy. Did you
Yeah.
intend to go, I'm going to do carnivore and stick to it the next 3.5 years?
That's a good question. I mean, I didn't necessarily know what was gonna happen. Um, I know that some people close to me said, "I don't know that that's a good idea. That's bad for you. Saturated fat, all that kind of stuff." Right.
Yes.
Um, and my whole thing was I pretty much hit rock bottom, and this was something to try. And if it worked, then great. And if it didn't, I wasn't going to be any worse off than I already was. That's how I
There you
felt.
go. There you go.
So I probably couldn't imagine that it would work out as great as it has. But since it has worked out so great for me, even if somebody could provide evidence to me that long term I was doing wrong for my body, which I don't believe, Rick is a perfect example. But let's
Yes.
say that somebody could provide that evidence to me. I am 52 years old right now and actually have a quality of life that I did not have in my 30s and 40s.
Hmm.
So I would take this quality of life over knowing that having this quality of life may present me problems later down the road.
You know what? Exactly. I'd rather feel good until the time that I die or whatever. But when we
Yeah.
talk about, again, in my practice, I don't have anybody carnivore, and I don't talk about it, and I don't use that name, not hiding it. I just want to help people. But anyway, so this weekend, I told I was in Tampa, so I met Rick. Have you ever met Rick in person? I was
I
at the
have
Kilts
not.
meetup, met him in
Okay.
person, picked him up at the bus stop. And I did a 9-second short where I told my husband, oh my gosh, film me meeting him for the first time. And he's as awesome as we see on his Saturday show. Just a 6'6", just
I was gonna say he's very
lovable.
tall.
Well, and people always say so tall. I was expecting him to be so tall, so it didn't surprise me. And of course, Mitch, I was expecting Mitch was there, and I sat with him for some time. I expected him to be so short, and he wasn't. He's
Mm.
maybe almost 6 foot, I think, because I'm tall, and he was a few inches taller than me. But I digress. Let's look at Tanya's questions. Maybe you know this word. I should have Googled it. Valsalvas maneuver can be used to correct a fast heart rhythm. Is that a
So I'm not
statement?
sure what that is, but I wonder if they're talking about the vagus nerve. Because
Oh,
Dr. Barry has talked about some AFib seems to be caused by the vagus nerve. So I
oh,
believe there is some sort of technique that works to try and calm down the vagus nerve or something that can help. I will say that one of the things you learn quickly with AFib is that if you relax and try and do some deep breathing, it does help to lower your heart rate. And if you can lower that heart rate, it can help with getting you back into rhythm if you have the
oh.
type of AFib I had that you can get out of it on your own at least.
Interesting. I have to pause a second because Okies Eden is a good friend of mine, and I think it was only one person asked if we're cousins or related because his name is Eden. It's not his last name. It's
Mm.
his farm and gardens and stuff. So it's Okies Eden. So I always say he's my cousin. He's coming on Thursday. Now, I love that he's not a carnivore, but he grows his own fruit and vegetables and teaches that. We'll get more into that when he's on. But I am so excited for him to come on my channel because I like to think, unlike some people, it doesn't matter that we eat carnivore, we embrace and are interested in everything, just sustainable planet, depletion. We talk about this all the time, depletion of um, minerals in our soils, we talk about that a lot. So I do want to give a shout out to him. So when I saw Lainey's name, I don't know, my brain just asked so many questions. Lainey is doing cold plunges at the advice
Mm.
of DC Rebuilding, her coach. As you know, and it's not something private, and I know I could share, she is a cancer, not only survivor, but she is an amazing cancer survivor. She does the cold plunge. I'm wondering, as we kind of heal and become better, we sort of look for different things like cold showers. Do you do any of those um, I was going to say tricks, but that's not the right word. Life things to
Life
benefit.
hacks.
Yeah, life hacks.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have done a little bit of cold plunging, if you will, not really in the sense you're probably thinking of, but just in the shower. Uh, One thing I learned, I think I learned this actually from Dr. Sean O'Mara, that at the end of your shower, you can turn your shower to the coldest water that you can possibly seem to handle for as long as you can handle, and make sure you get your entire body hit with the cold water. And that kind of helps like a cold plunge would do. Um, so the first time probably I did that, it probably wasn't very cold, but it was like maybe, I don't know, 10, 15 seconds. And most of the time when I do that now, I can do it for like a minute or two. And I use
Mhm.
it pretty cold water. And you know, you move around to make sure you're getting in the different parts of your body. And as you move, you hit a spot and you're like, oh, that's cold. But I do that. So I do that a little bit. I just don't do actual cold plunges, but that kind of
Right.
works the same as that. I like to do grounding. So if it's warm out, that's just walking barefoot, like, you know, on the grass or wherever you're at. Um, I also have, because I sit at a computer so much, I have a grounding mat and I tend to sit with my bare feet on the grounding mat and do
Me
that.
too.
So
Mhm.
I will do that. I don't know that you really could call this more of a life hack, but I try to get as much sun as possible,
I
especially
knew
in the
you were gonna
summer.
say that. I do think
Right
it's a
now, it's
life.
just really cold, so it's hard to do that.
I
But
have
yeah,
to
I
admit,
will do that. Go ahead.
I love the cold showers, but I can't do them in the winter. I know they're good for you.
It's
So,
hard.
Lady says it's so invigorating, and rids her of brain fog. She follows it with grounding and breath work. It's a fantastic way to start the day. And I forget what live I was on, but Lainey was in the background dancing around and looked so well. And I was just so happy for her that those kind of things help her for sure.
Yeah.
Um, you could tell, I think I already know. What state are you in? I think you're in the Midwest, I feel like, but you're going to go,
I'm
no,
in
that's Johnny.
I'm on the East Coast. I'm on the East Coast. So I'm in Virginia. Actually, Johnny and I
Okay.
are both in the East Coast. He's in North
Okay.
Carolina and I'm in Virginia. So
I got you both wrong. I'm sorry.
but well, I grew up in the Midwest.
Did
So
you?
I was born in Ohio and then I lived in southern Michigan,
Oh, that's
like,
cool.
I don't know, I guess into my upper 20s. And then I moved out here to Virginia and I've been out here ever since.
So, what is the history of you and Johnny? Um, I mean, you have your show, and we the gang here. I think all the gang here watches too. Hi, it looks if I didn't say it. How did that start?
Yeah, it actually started with somebody before Johnny, Greg, my weight loss life. So this goes back like I guess probably 2.5 years because I was like a year into Carnivore, and Greg and I were both just starting with YouTube channels, and he was more ketovore-ish. So he would kind of do a day where he wouldn't eat any carbs, and then another day where he would eat like, I don't know, 10 carbs or something. And then the next day he'd go back to no carbs again. So that was kind of how he would do things.
Yeah.
And we just kind of got together and decided we were going to do a show together. And it was football season. So we did something that was called the low carb football party.
Oh,
And we
great
did that.
idea.
I think we did that for like a year or so. And then like we did like a Super Bowl episode. And then each of the last two Super Bowls here, the last 2 years, we did like a Super Bowl episode. But anyway, after doing the low carb football party, we did something called the low carb lounge with
Bernard.
Aaron, and
Oh, okay.
I can't remember I can't remember what her channel name was. Aaron Inspired maybe or something like that. So it was the three of us and we had this low carb lounge thing and we did, I don't know, a few months of that. And then um Greg got busy. He had a couple of weddings with his daughters and stuff, and he was moving. His mom got sick, that kind of stuff. So we
Mm.
kind of fell off doing things. And he was gonna kind of get back to starting things up again, and we decided to do something called Real Talk, where we were gonna do this show together. And we did like one or two episodes, but he just was really busy, so it wasn't really working out. But we had kind of both built a relationship with Johnny, the carnivore champion. Johnny actually was a truck driver for a while, and
Oh, okay.
he was out in the Midwest where Greg was at one time, and he got to spend the day with him and stuff. And then um, Johnny kind of fell off pretty hard off the carnivore diet,
Mhm.
and he ended up having a stroke. And we talked a lot, like through text while he's in the hospital and then recovering, that kind of stuff. And he really feels like it was based on that he started eating a lot of junk food, and he had gone into A-Fib again at this point, and he has actually been in A-Fib ever since then. But he
Yeah.
went into A-Fib and he was driving the truck, and his heart rate had got really high. He wasn't taking medications, and he had like a mini stroke, um, just from the heart rate getting too high and that kind of stuff. So we decided as he was getting better that we wanted to talk a little bit about that and share his story. So I did an interview where he got to explain everything that happened and all that kind of stuff. And based on that, we said, you know what? We do jive pretty well together. Why don't we do a show? And I was like, well, Greg and I were going to do this real talk thing. Maybe we should do real talk together. So that's kind of what brought about the real talk show that we do every Wednesday. And boy, I think we've been doing it now for probably a year, I think.
It's a
Probably pretty
huge
much or close
success.
to it.
If I'm looking to reach anyone, I'm like, well, I'm just going over there because I know that's where the crowd is. I think I've made it a few times recently, though. Um, tell what
Yeah.
time are you on and what day of the week, in case anyone is not subscribed.
Yeah, so it is Wednesday evenings and it's at 8 p.m. Eastern time, 7 p.m. Central time. So that'd be, I guess, what, 5 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m.
There you go.
Mountain, whatever. So there you go. That covers all the
That
time
cover-
zones in the US and
That's that's
some
the
most of them in
day.
Canada, I guess.
That's the day I'm at the gym and I have, codes and I could go day or night. I haven't worked out for 3 weeks because I do some classes and some training, personal training. So I'm like, I'm the only one that goes to I go, but I'm not working out. It's pretty pitiful. Okay, since Lainey is getting very creepy, but I blame George. She said, no, teaser. She says, we don't usually say this, but your skin is glowing. And I have to add, Lainey, as you're talking, I'm thinking, wow, your skin looks really good. And you have the prettiest blue eyes that I've never noticed because I watch you on my phone, and my eyesight's very, very bad. And I'm like going, oh, he so has beautiful eyes. So those are the compliments. Did you ever
Thank you.
have any skin issues? I know Lash talks about psoriasis and things like that. I'm just curious.
Um, I have a little bit of rosacea, but I haven't really had much of a problem with it. I used to get like bumps on the back of my arm here,
Mm.
and I wasn't exactly sure what they were, but I noticed at some point, and I couldn't tell you when, but I just noticed that at some point after I went to Carnivore, I don't have those bumps anymore. And my wife was looking stuff up and she thinks that that was pretty much from rosacea. So I think that the rosacea is pretty much under control, which I know that that doesn't always happen from carnivore. So I know like Dr. Barry still has that problem, for instance. So I don't know if
Yes.
I'm just lucky or what, but I haven't really had issues. So
My daughter reminds me, and you guys hear the story, so I don't want to bore everybody. My 28-year-old has colitis, and the doctor basically told her get rid of veggies, seeds, not like he told her. He just didn't say carnivore. So we kind of smiled at each other, and so she's been doing carnivore. But one thing she stresses is, yeah, she's doing a lot better, but carnivore isn't a cure all. She has colitis. She's had it for many years. It's not going to go away, but she
mm,
said the pain is less. Flare-ups happen every maybe 4 years, and there's that she has to be hospitalized, things like that. So I always like to stress that too, because some people think, oh, you guys are crazy, you're a cult, you think and it doesn't, but it could help symptoms of some of the things we have, if not reverse, because I've reversed. I'm like you. I mean, I'm on no meds. So I
yeah.
wanted to ask about your wife. I haven't seen her on your channel. I'd love to try to get couples to do lives only because me and my husband do, and I've wanted all the couples to come on. Is she carnivore? And if not, does she? Oh, hi, mental. Does she like support you, or what's her deal?
Yeah, she is not carnivore,
My husband.
and she likes to stay out of the limelight, not be on videos or anything like that. So she's never really on any videos. She has actually held the camera for me a couple of times when I've done some things, but that's about it. Um, but she is not on the carnivore diet. Um, she kind of, for a while now, has been watching what she eats, try not to
Mhm.
eat so much sweets, that kind of stuff. She is one of those persons that I was talking about at the beginning when I first started doing carnivore that was like, I'm not sure that's a really good idea because of the saturated fat and so forth. And then after the first couple months, she's like, well, I see that it's working. You're losing weight, but I'm still not sold on that kind of thing. And then probably after a couple more months, she kind of came more to the realization of, yeah, it seems to be working. Um, and she, I think, is at a point in the last year or two that she really believes cutting out carbs is a good thing for people. Um, she doesn't have the same kind of issues that I had, pain and so forth. So I don't think she's got enough motivation to really do that. You
Right.
know what I'm
That
saying?
makes sense.
It's really
That
hard. It's really hard for people. If you've been
right.
eating carbs your entire life and you don't see a lot of problems, it's hard to get those people to believe that they should stop eating those foods.
Right,
So,
exactly, and maybe they don't need to. I even on my website, people will say, I'm like, "If you don't have the aging disease many of us have, reduce your carbs and have, you don't need to go, crazy." My husband's on
yeah.
with us every Sunday, but he is not carnivore either. He went this weekend with me to Tampa, and what the speakers, Dr. Avadia and Dr. Alana, specifically, of course, Dr. Nelson and Kilt, and I could see his eyes, and he was like looking at me. He goes, "Really?" And like things I don't nag. He's like, "Did you know that about statins?" I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, and you're on statins, whatever." I don't push it that much, you know. So it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, the idea he could go carnivore and he just binge on fatty meat for 2 days. Not binge, but and by Saturday, he was like laying on the bed, really sick. Once he felt better after having some tea, he went out, got himself a steak, baked potato with all the fixins, broccoli, and Jack Daniels or something. And I was just laughing. I'm like, yeah, it's not easy, is it? Oh,
Yeah.
but by
It's
the
not.
way, I said, "Oh, get me a Diet Coke," and he did. So now I blame him that I was drinking Diet Coke this w well, one large one. I was like, I love to go on air and blame him. I'm like, "You enabled me. I gave up Diet Coke." But, and what else? I had vegetables. I had broccoli. It was steamed broccoli. I haven't had a vegetable in forever. I didn't die. I didn't get stomach upset, but it was 3. Sometimes
Yeah.
you're just like, I just wanna try it. I'm in a safe place. I wanna try it, and I was fine. Not that I'm excited to add back in broccoli, but it's nice to try a little something and go, "Okay, I'm not gonna die, if I have this." Because I haven't like you kind of feel like, I don't want to go back to eating carbs or even experiment, because what if my blood pressure goes back up? What if I go into a deep depression? What about my IBD? What about my I get almost a little afraid, not afraid, not stopped in my tracks, but I don't wanna go back to the meds or being diabetic. I'm like, it just doesn't seem worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people are saying they have no real choice.
Yep.
Um, yeah, and then George is complaining about his wife, as usual. But
Mm.
I think, especially with my husband and even my daughter till recently, I just I don't talk about it, and he was getting mad, "You should have told me about statins in this." I go, "Are you gonna get off them? No. Are you gonna change your diet? No. So why would I bother?" But yeah, he
Right.
tries. He does those things. So what's in your future? What are you doing? You have your day job, you have your channel. Do you have other things that you're involved in the communities? Do you go to meetups? Do you do coaching, education, or are you just like, I don't know?
Um, so I actually have never been to a meetup of any kind. Um, Probably the closest I came was that there's this keto group in the town that I live in that does like meetups, like I think it's once a month or something like that. And I almost went once, but I just didn't because I was like, I don't know. I mean, I'm carnivore and it may not be exactly the same. And I don't know if I want to do that. But, I've never gone to any of like the big meetups or anything, or even like a one that's considered somewhat local or anything like that. Um, and it's great for people.
Yeah,
And I'm sure that it really helps a lot of people. Plus, it gives you the opportunity to meet more people that are like minded, right? That are doing the same things. Um, but it's just something that I haven't really tried to pursue. So
yeah,
maybe at some point I will. I don't know. Um, but yeah, I mean, really, I've got my channel and that's kind of about it. I've got a Facebook page where I try and post a lot of positive stuff on Facebook about healthy eating and that kind of stuff.
yeah.
Um, that's pretty much it. Uh,
You,
I
you
don't
know, and
coach or any of that stuff.
this was my first. I was supposed to go to Hack Your Health. My mom got sick, and this was very small. So, maybe 100 people. And, a little like Mitch. I can't, I don't know if you watch Mitch, and he won't mind
Yeah.
me saying it, but he's like, I can't watch another carnivore channel. What's there left to say about, carnivore? There's nothing to say. Um, but I did enjoy, and maybe it's me. Hi, Dustin. I did enjoy the small environment. Maybe it's some leftover in my brain. As outgoing as I can be, I am more comfortable in a small environment. Um, it didn't overwhelm my mind. And I think I spoke to George about this yesterday. I said, I'm going to have to really question which meetups I want to go to because I think too big, too much can be overwhelming for me, if that makes sense. I don't know.
Mm.
So if there's a few small ones, of course, then I'm going to England to the Great British meetup. So don't ask. Okay, I love this. Uh, oh, I won't say her name, but the strong carnivorous. My ex-partner made me go carnivore. Then he went high carb and I kicked him out. True story. Okay, I love that
Uh,
story. That's going to live on. Okay, let me look down here. So
so
that, that
I should
good.
say really quick, about my wife because I don't know that I really said it that well, but she does support me quite a bit. She's very much on board for what I do. She just doesn't do it herself, so she definitely does support me. I'd say the only time that I've kind of learned like don't lecture her at all about the
Don't.
carbs and that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
But the only time that really there's a problem ever is that I don't get sick very often. And if I do, usually the symptoms aren't that bad. And when she gets sick, usually it seems like it's pretty bad. She feels bad for weeks, that kind of stuff.
My
And like
husband
sometimes
too.
she'll be like, "Oh God, I just feel so bad, and you're not getting sick." And I'll be like, "Well, I don't eat any of those carbs, those processed foods that you
Brian,
do."
you cannot do that anymore.
Yeah, that's the one thing
No.
that's usually a problem. So that's the only thing that I ever say, but that usually becomes a problem when I say that. So I
Okay,
get in
don't do
more
that
trouble.
anymore. No,
Yeah.
I mess with Doug. People in the audience are always like, "You're mean to Doug," but it's not really about food. I just stay in my lane on that. And I go on the my friends are vegetarians, and I sometimes they make almond flour or something, and I'm like, it looks good. If it looks good, it looks good, and I say that. I'm so far removed from trying to influence somebody that isn't asking. I mean, nobody's
Yeah.
asking me other than recently my daughter or clients, oh, I need help. What should I do? If they're not asking me, I figure they're doing fine. Let them go. Just let it be. Um, okay, I'm losing track of the. We're almost on the hour, and like I told you at the beginning, and some people know this about me. Um, the hour hits even on the lives I watch, and I'm like, okay, I'm done. There's something that shuts off in my brain, and I told he didn't ask me, but I said we're not going till we're just going to go max an hour. So, and you said that was okay. You didn't mind at all. I really
Cool.
appreciate you coming on, and I
Yeah.
love
Thanks
talking
for
to
having
you.
me on. So,
I feel like the first time I met you, and it was only weeks ago, and I'm like so impressed. Didn't really know you very well, and that's when I'm like, oh, can you come on my channel? Do you have any last things to say or anything you want to add that I might have missed? Do you have cats? That's usually an important question.
we
We're cat.
do have cats. We currently have two cats. So when all of my kids were living here, I think we had at one point four cats and a dog. And then my one daughter went to college and she got a dog. So when she was back in the summers, we'd have two dogs here and like four cats. But both of my daughters are out living their own lives now. So we don't have that dog. Unfortunately, my dog passed away. And then a couple of the cats went with the daughters. So we only have two cats left now at this point.
Oof.
Um, and that's fine because like at Christmas time, well, my one daughter had two cats. She now has four cats. So at Christmas time, let's see, we have four cats come to our house from her house, and a cat and a dog from the other daughter, plus the two cats we got. So I believe that's seven cats and a dog that we had
Crazy.
here at Christmas. So that it gets crazy. It's like a jungle.
It's funny. It's this is sort of a thing among the carnivore group that, and again, Mitch, I'm he laughs at us. We all seem to have cats, or at least are animal lovers. I grew up with dogs. I didn't want a cat, but the kids are little and they each wanted a cat. We got a cat. I didn't know they lived like 18 years. They went off. One's up completely out of state, far away from Missouri. And I'm like, I didn't know you what? They live so long. But yeah, so there's a lot of
Yeah.
cats. Right now we don't have any. That our last one passed recently, and that's
Mm.
okay. But I'm just giving it. I just know I'm going to walk in this house any day, and there's just going to be a cat ready to go, and it'll be a carnivore cat for sure. Um, our cats, towards the end, I started to feed them ground beef, and they liked it cooked. So they would get cooked ground beef, and they seemed to love it and really thrived. But they died of cat diseases, whatever. So, well, I'm
Mm.
glad to know you're an animal lover and a cat lover. So I will say goodbye. Thank you everyone for coming. I really appreciate it. So many great, kind remarks, Brian, for you. I don't know if you caught them all. People
Mm.
saying, oh, I really like meeting him and great guest and things like that. So I appreciate it. Guys, thank you. And we'll see you later. Bye bye, everybody.
Bye, buddy.